We've been working on business school projects now for almost 30 years, and that makes it sound as though there might be expertise that one's developed which applies to everything, but actually part of the thrill of it is that it's turned out to be quite the opposite of that. Every business school is different, so students are learning in fundamentally different ways.
One of the driving purposes and principles of this project was to create not just a building for taking classes or learning, but a real hub for SMU.
Originally they came to us, and like a lot of business schools, their enrollment has increased, and they had 3 buildings which were almost completely independent, connected by this unpleasant subterranean concourse, and everyone was divided, and the buildings themselves had double-littered corridors and dark and dingy classrooms. They needed more space.
And so the challenge for us was to look at ways to most cost-effectively capitalize on the investment they already had and yet fundamentally transform the school. And we looked at options that ranged all the way from all new construction, tearing everything down, to solutions which were largely based on renovation and various combinations in between.
And we looked at all the business schools that we have done, and many of those that the school itself identified as their peers and aspirant peers.
So we come into these engagements without a fixed idea of what the solution is, and that in fact the main thrill of the project is the chase, is trying to figure out what is the appropriate solution, not for us, but for the business school, for the faculty, for the students.
In the end, we chose to keep the existing buildings and to connect them so that it operated as one coherent facility. The buildings had been built over the span of many decades, and they didn't really speak to each other. At the same time, the campus had grown around it, and so what was previously a back was now a front. So we united those 3 buildings together by inserting a series of pavilions that joined them, and then we expanded the space also. We introduced a number of new front doors around what had become backs of those buildings, and so it's now a unified complex around a large green space, a courtyard that students can use, and it looks out in every direction towards the campus, so it draws people in from everywhere.
This is the goals for it, creating a greater sense of cohesion, creating a 9 to 9 environment that you would want to be there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and that the building would always be alive.
We created a lot of different types of social spaces and study spaces and collaboration spaces. And one of the signature spaces of the new Cox School is a new atrium, a new living room that is in an addition that's on the front side of the historic Fincher building. It's a triple height space, and we preserved the facade of the Fincher building as well as the historic porch, and we turned that into a grand staircase, celebrating it in an interesting way that really connects multiple floors, brings natural light down into the lower level, and offers a lot of social space where students gather, and it has become really the hub of the whole school. The emphasis on community and presence and connection really is transformative in terms of how it allows students to use academic buildings. I think there's right now a real emphasis on presence and collaboration, and universities are really thinking about how they encourage students to want to be present, to want to be on campus. Hybrid learning is obviously a growing thing, and it's a great thing, but also I think that there's a sort of a renewed appreciation for being in person, being present. I would say that the feature that makes the biggest difference is actually the portfolio of classrooms itself. Rather than trying to do one room that does it all, we created a variety of types: flat classrooms, tiered classrooms, lecture style, auditorium style, so that faculty could sort of match their pedagogy with the classroom type and teach more effectively. Simultaneously, we introduced a few new types into the mix at Cox, and particularly the cluster classroom was not something they had previously, and that's a classroom that enables simultaneous lecture style and group work in the same class section.
All members of the class speaking to each other, or for the professor to say, now break into your groups, and they all turn around to their table, they can work on a project for a limited amount of time and then come back together as an entire class.
Those are by far the most popular classrooms amongst students and faculty. We heard that over and over. When the building was complete, I actually traveled to Dallas and attended classes for 2 days and really lived in the building all day long to experience what it was like and to observe what happened in the building, behavior of students and faculty, and see how all of the things we planned for really played out in everyday life. I think that too often as architects, we spend years designing buildings, and when they're complete, we don't get to really experience the results in a way that allows us to learn lessons from all the work we've done. So that was sort of the core reason that I wanted to visit. It was inspiring to me. It reinforced why I do what I do, why I love it, to appreciate, the beauty of what we created, but the way it changes students' lives and behavior, and the way they use academic buildings on a day-to-day basis. And the building now preserves the history and the legacy and the institutional memory of Cox, but it feels like a new building and a modern building at the same time. It's pretty amazing. One of the things that's been remarkable is seeing how the building, through its design and through the addition of lots of student space, community space, has really sort of shifted the center of gravity on campus a little bit. It is a destination where students come, whether they're business school students or not, and it's a real hub for student life on campus.
One of the characteristics of Cox that made it so interesting for us as a project was their level of ambition for high-quality business education in the future, and their willingness to pushing that vision, that set of aspirations, and not simply building more of what they have already.
Being in person, being present, collaborating with your peers, creating an academic and social ecosystem, a building that functions not just as a place for learning, but a place for living. And it's the intersection of those two things that really makes it special.